All right, let's jump right into a question that seems super simple, but the more you think about it, the weirder it gets. We're going to tackle a real paradox at the very heart of life itself.
Okay, so here it is. Why do organisms even bother to reproduce? Seriously, what's the point? It's not like breathing or finding food, things an animal or a plant has to do to stay alive. In fact, it's kind of the opposite.
Think about it. Reproducing takes up a ton of energy. Energy that organism could be using to, find more food, escape predators, just survive. So why pour all that effort into something that's not even essential for your own life? That's the big paradox. And to get to the bottom of it, we need to look at life's master blueprint.
So before we can really get the why, we've got to understand the how. And it all comes down to the actual instructions for making a living thing in the first place.
And that instruction manual? Well, that's DNA. Just think of it like a biological blueprint. It holds all the information needed to build the proteins that make up, well, everything, from your eyes to a tiny bacteria's cell wall. It's why related organisms look similar, right? Their DNA blueprints are basically cut from the same cloth.
So here's the key takeaway. When you boil it all down, reproduction at its most fundamental level is just one thing, making a copy of that DNA blueprint. That's it. Everything else, that's all just details. And the process itself is actually pretty elegant. You've got a cell, and its first job is to carefully, meticulously copy its entire DNA. So now it has two complete sets. But, a blueprint is useless without a factory, right? So the cell also doubles up on all its essential gear, its machinery. And only when everything is perfectly in place, then it splits, creating two new, fully functional cells.
Okay, so now we have two new cells. They're both pretty much like the original. But this is where the story gets really interesting, because it forces us to ask a really important question.
Are these new cells absolutely identical to the original? Are they perfect clones, down to the last molecule? You'd think so, right? But nature is a little bit messy. And it turns out that messiness is one of the most important things in the world. So the answer is a big nope. They are not absolutely identical. And the reason is beautifully simple. No biochemical reaction, not a single one, is 100% reliable 100% of the time. It's kind of like making a photocopy of a photocopy. Each new copy is really, really good, but maybe there's a tiny speck here or a line is a little faded there. It's never perfect. And it's the same with DNA. As it gets copied, these tiny little variations, these typos, can creep in. The new copy is almost identical, but not quite a perfect match. Now, most of these little changes, they don't mean a thing. But the ones that do, oh man, they have absolutely staggering implications for all of life.
And I am not exaggerating when I say this might be the single most important idea in all of biology. This one simple fact that copies aren't perfect is the entire basis for evolution. These tiny, random mistakes are the raw material that evolution works with. It's the engine that has created the mind-boggling diversity of life you see all around you. And what's so cool is that nature has taken this fundamental idea of imperfect copying and just run with it. I mean, it's developed all these incredible, fascinating strategies for making new life from just a single parent. The official term for this is asexual reproduction. And it's exactly what it sounds like, creating a whole new generation from just one individual, all based on that core DNA copying process we've been talking about. And the ways it happens, it's wild. You've got bacteria that just split in two. That's called fission. Then there are critters like Hydra that use budding, where a tiny little clone literally just grows off the side of the parent. How cool is that? Some things, like an algae called Spirogyra, can use fragmentation. The parent breaks into pieces, and each piece just grows into a new one. And of course, you've got things like bread mold, which release these tough little spores that just float around, waiting for the right spot to start growing. Okay, so this brings us right back to where we started. Why go through all this trouble? The answer, the real secret sauce, is in those tiny imperfections. It's all about the variations that make every single copy just a little bit different from the last. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you have a whole population of bacteria, and they're all perfectly happy in some nice temperate water. Survival is great. But then something changes. Let's say the water gets way hotter. Now, if every single bacterium was a perfect clone, they might all be unable to handle the heat, and poof, the entire population gets wiped out. But if there's variation, if some of those imperfect copies just happen to be a little more heat resistant, well, they survive.
They get to reproduce, and the species lives on.
So you see, variation is like the ultimate insurance policy for a species. It's the secret weapon that allows life to adapt and hang on when the world inevitably throws a curveball. Without it, a single bad change could mean game over. Life would be unbelievably fragile.
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? The whole point of this game isn't just about making more copies that are exactly the same. It's about generating a whole population with a toolbox of different traits, just to make sure that no matter what happens down the road, the species as a whole has a fighting chance to endure.
So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. When we talk about reproduction, is the goal really about making more, or is the real magic in making things just a little bit different? Which one do you think truly drives the story of life?